Good afternoon and welcome to lecture 10 of ETC 779. In the previous lecture, we discussed about different situations in which the computations of present worth is desired. We saw the situation in which different alternatives had equal lives. In case 2, we saw situations in which alternatives were having different lives. And finally, in situation 3, we found that the alternatives had infinite lives. In case of first case, in which the alternatives had equal lives, we calculated present cost or present worth or net present value, whatever may be the situation. When I say this, I calculated present cost when the cash flow diagram was cost dominated. I calculated present worth when the cash flow diagram was revenue dominated, and I calculated net present worth or net present value when I had a mixed kind of cash flow diagram. That means, I had information on receipts as well as the expenditures. In case 2, we discussed about two methods. If you remember, case 2 was pertaining to situations in which alternatives had different lives. We discussed repeated projects method, which is also known as common multiple method, and we briefly introduced you to another method which is called study period method. And finally, for third situation in which the different alternatives had infinite lives, we discussed capitalized equivalent method, which is nothing but the present worth of all the cash receipts as well as all the cash outgoings which are in perpetuity. So, I gave you some expression to calculate capitalized equivalent. So, this was just the review of lecture 9. Now, coming to today's lecture, as you can see from this particular opening slide, we will be discussing about future worth, we will be discussing about annual cost method of comparison, and if time permits, we will also be discussing about rate of return method of comparison. So, the first thing that I will try to cover today is the future worth method. If you see this particular slide, it basically describes future worth comparison method of different alternatives. It is very much similar to present worth as far as concept goes. The only difference here is I am taking future worth, that means at some point of time in future I am calculating all the money's worth. It poses a special advantage in situations in which you are likely to get some money at a later date. Say for example, retirement benefits. You want to calculate, let us say you are having some savings on an annual basis and you want to calculate how much it would be equivalent to at time, let us say 10 years hence. So, in such situation, we are going to compute future worth. Now, as you can notice, in such problems, in such methodology, you do not have to compute the present worth. So, discounting is not to be taken into consideration. Now, whatever problem we had solved till now, we can solve all those problems using future worth method also. So, instead of calculating the worth of cash inflows as well as outflows at time t is equal to 0, I calculate it at a later date. I will try to illustrate this concept using one problem which we discussed in previous class. I will show you that problem. Let us take this problem. It says we have already done this problem using present worth computations. So, you must be remembering this problem. Problem says there are two alternatives. Alternative A, which costs rupees 500,000 and a cash outlay of rupees 250,000 every year for next 10 years. Whereas for alternative B, it is costing rupees 750,000 and it requires a cash outlay of rupees 200,000 a year for next 10 years. So, this problem already we have solved using present worth method. Now, I want to solve this method using future worth method. So, what we do, step 1 remains same. I have to draw the cash flow diagram. So, cash flow diagram, now you must be in a position to draw it on your own. Just to refresh your memory, I will try to do this on a piece of paper. So, let us say you have a alternative A for which you require rupees 500,000 at time t is equal to 0, and it further requires 250,000 every year, per year I am writing, for next 10 years. So, 1, 2, 3, so on it will continue. Let us say for year 10 also I am having this 250,000 rupees. Now, if you remember present worth method, what we had done, we had calculated net present worth that was equal to this 500,000 plus this annuity converted at time t is equal to 0. Now, I want to solve this problem using future worth method of comparison. Let us say I want to find the money's worth, all these cash flows worth at time t is equal to 10. That means, I want to find all these money's worth at time t is equal to 10. How do I find this? What I will do is, I will write future worth, I will call this as FW, and this will be equal to minus of 500,000 minus, if you remember I am writing it because all these things are cost, it is going out of my pocket. So, minus 500,000 multiplied by, I am interested in finding its future worth knowing P. So, what I will write? F, that is future worth given P at n is equal to 10%, at n is equal to 10% for a period of 10 years. Similarly, I will also convert all these value 250,000 rupees per year at this point of time. How do I do this? I say this 250,000, that means minus 250,000 A is known to me, I am interested in finding its F. So, F given A at 10% interest for a period 10. So, I will calculate the future worth of, this is let us say alternative A, So, I will calculate the future worth for alternative A. In the same manner, I will calculate the future worth of alternative B. Now, if you try to draw the cash flow diagram of alternative B, it would be something like this. Alternative B is costing 750,000 right at the beginning at time t is equal to 0, and every year you have to spend 200,000 per year for next 10 years. So, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, let us put some gap and let us say we are having t is equal to 10 here, which again requires 200,000 per year. Now, here also I will calculate the future worth in the same manner. It would be minus 750,000. I know P, I am interested in finding F. So, this would become F given P at 10% interest for 10 years minus 200,000. You are given A, you want F. So, F given A 10% 10. Now, whichever future worth out of alternative A and alternative B, this is alternative B, is more, that option will be selected. So, you understood what you have to do? It is very similar to present worth analysis only. The only difference here is that now we are considering the money's worth at some future date. So, in first case I calculated the future worth at the end of year 10. Similarly, for the second case I calculated the future worth at the end of year 10, and depending on the values, whichever value I get more, that means whichever future worth, I mean for whatever alternative I am getting higher value of future worth, I will be taking that option. So, decision rules remain same as in case of present worth analysis. Whichever option has got more future worth, I will be taking that option, right. So, this is as far as future worth comparison method is concerned. It is not very commonly used. You will find most of the people using present worth. However, in cases in which you require that you get a feel of the money that you are going to get at the end of certain period, you try to use this particular method of comparison. So, this was just the brief introduction of future worth method of comparison. Now, we will go to one very important method of comparison, that is called annual cost and worth comparison. So, if you see this particular slide, this is basically the third method. We have already covered two methods of comparison. One was present worth method, second one we just now discussed, that is called future worth, and finally the third method is called annual cost and worth comparison. Now, whatever problem we solved till now, all these problems can also be solved using annual cost method. This is perhaps one of the most widely used method for comparing different alternatives. This is because it is very simple to calculate as well as it is very simple to understand also. Why it is very simple? because we are talking in terms of annualized cost. If you even if you are telling it to some layman, you can tell them like this, that okay, if you are investing in this alternative, you are getting an annual return of X. If you are investing in this alternative, you are getting an annual return of Y. So, people feel very close to such kind of talks. So, that is why you find that this method of analysis is most widely used. Now, what we do in this method? All the payments and disbursements, we convert it into an annualized cost series at a given interest rate. So, no matter you are spending some money at the end of year 5 or at the end of year 3, what you do? You try to bring it in the annual form, annualized cost. And once it is annualized and you have got spendings as well as receipts at same time scale, you can add them or subtract them algebraically. Now, what is the decision rule in this? The alternative which yields the least cost is chosen. The decision rule in case of present worth method was the alternative with least the maximum present worth was chosen. Now, here also you find that if you are having a mixed kind of situation, mixed kind of cash flow diagram, so the alternative that gives most positive cash flow to you is the most preferred alternative. Now, this particular method can also be used to compare alternatives with equal lives, with unequal lives, and for infinite lives also. That means, whatever cases we had taken for present worth method, all those situations, all those problem situations can also be modeled using annual cost and worth method, as we will see through some example. Let us go back to the same example which we took it up today. Let us see the same cash flow for alternative A. The problem was there are two alternatives. For alternative A, you have to invest 500,000 at the beginning and you have to invest further 250,000 per year for next 10 years. Suppose I have to compare this using annual cost method. What I do? I will draw the cash flow diagram once again. Let us say this is 500,000 and then you have 250,000 per year for next 10 years. This is year 1, 2, 3, 4 and let us say up to 10. This is t is equal to 0. This is alternative A. Now, I want to find the annualized cost for this particular alternative. So, you may notice that these are already in the form of annual cost 250,000 every year you have to spend maybe towards its operation and maintenance. Now, the only thing that we need to annualize here is this value 500,000, because this is the investment required at time t is equal to 0. Now, in annualized cost method, I have to convert this single sum into its annual equivalent. So, what I need to know is A corresponding to this. So, what is given to me? I know P, I am interested in knowing A. That means, this 500,000 is equivalent to what amount to be spent on an annual basis for next 10 years. So, A I need to find, P is given to me. So, I will simply use this factor A given P for an interest rate of 10% for a period 10. So, this factor I will calculate, I will find it out from the table and multiply it with this 500,000. That means 500,000 multiplied by this factor A given P at 10% interest rate for 10 years, and I will be adding it to 250,000, which is already in the form of annual value. If you notice this, 250,000 per year for next 10 years. So, this is already in the form of annual values. So, the total 500,000 multiplied by this factor, then the annual value as far as this alternative A is concerned. Now, in the same manner, I do it for alternative B also. Alternative B is like this: you spend 750,000 now, and then per year investment requirement is 200,000 for next 10 years. Year 1, 2, 3. I break it here and then I reach at 10. Here again same thing. So, what I do, the annual cost AC I write would be minus 750,000 multiplied by A given P at 10% interest rate for 10 years minus 200,000. Remember, these minus sign I am putting because all these are investment required, that is cost going out of my pocket. Now, out of these two annual costs for alternative A and alternative B, whichever cost is least, I will go for that option. So, what you have to do in annualized cost method is, step 1 remains same. You find the cash flow diagram and then convert all the values, all the cash flows at different point of time to its annualized value. Annualized value you can find it through different means. For this example, you have seen that the initial investment has been converted into an annuity and which has been added in the annual operating and maintenance cost. So, this way we are able to find the annual cost for both the options, and whichever option gives me the lowest cost, that option would be preferred by me. So, in concept it is very simple, and even a layman can understand if you speak it in terms of annualized cost implication. Suppose for some alternative the annualized cost liability is 100,000. For another alternative, the annualized cost liability is 110,000. So, naturally the first alternative would be preferred because the cost liability is least in the first option, right. So, this is as far as annual cost and worth comparison is concerned. Now, look at the last bulleted point. It says that the method could be used to compare alternatives with equal and unequal lives. Just now we have discussed the case for equal lives, because in both the alternatives you must have noticed that the life was 10 years. Now this method can also be used in situation where the alternatives have different lives. Now we will take same example which we discussed for present worth computations method. For that I will show you the cash flow diagram as well as the problem I will give you once again. This we had taken up in previous lecture, and let me just show you that particular problem. Let us look at this problem again. This we had solved it using present worth method. Now this problem I want to solve it again using annual cost method. The problem is very simple. There are two assets which can perform the same function. Now asset 2 has an initial cost of 160,000 and it has a salvage value of rupees 20,000, which is at the end of its 4-year service life. Asset A1 is costing rupees 45,000 less initially. That means it would cost 115,000. It has an economic life 1 year shorter than that of A2. That means its economic life is 3 years. But this particular asset has no salvage value and its annual cost is exceeding that of asset 2 by rupees 12,500. Now if you try to see this in the form of a cash flow diagram, it would look something like this. For asset 2 if you draw, it is costing you 160,000 at the beginning, time t is equal to 0. It has got a life of 4 years. So let us say 1, 2, 3 and 4. It is giving you a salvage value of 20,000. So I will write it in positive side. It is 20,000 here. This problem already we have solved using present worth method computations. This I am trying to show you using annual cost method also. This is as far as asset 2 is concerned, A2 I write. Now when it comes to A1, it is like this. It has got 115,000. Why? Because it costs 45,000 less at the beginning. So at t is equal to 0, you have 115,000. Its life is only for 3 years, year 1, 2 and 3. Here we had 4 years, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is no salvage value, and in addition to this you have an information that it is costing you 12,500 every year. For next 3 years. So this is as far as asset A1 is concerned, asset A1's cash flow diagram is concerned. Now I will try to solve this problem using both the methods. Method 1 is common multiple method or repeated project methods, and method 2 is study period method. Now for part 1, that is common multiple method, what I have to do is I have to repeat asset 2, investment for asset 2 3 times, whereas for asset 1, that is A1, I have to repeat this investment for 4 times. Why? Because I have to reach a common value of 12. So, for that A2's investment needs to be repeated 3 times, whereas A1's investment needs to be repeated for 4 times. So, the cash flow diagram would be like this now. For A2, it would be, first you have initial investment of 160,000, then again at the end of year 4 you would require 160,000, at the end of year 8 again you require 160,000, and here you will get 20,000 also as salvage value, here also you will get 20,000 as salvage value, and finally here also you will get as salvage value. This is end of year 0, this is 4, this is 8 and this is 12. So, what I have done, I have repeated the investment for asset 2, this is for asset 2 3 times. So, that means not only I am investing 160,000 at time t is equal to 0, I am investing it again at the end of year 4 as well as at the end of year 8. At what point of time I am getting salvage value worth rupees 20,000? At the end of year 4 shown in plus side, again at the end of year 8 and finally at the end of year 12. Now, for this alternative I have to calculate the annual cost. So, how do I calculate the annual cost for this? It would be like this, annual cost, I write it like AC is equal to, first of all I have to convert this 160,000 for 12 years. So, I am given P, I am interested in finding A. So, what I do? This would be minus 160,000 multiplied by, I am interested in finding A. So, I will write A given P for a interest rate of 10%, for a, no, interest rate given is 15%. So, make a correction, this is 15% for 12 years period. So, what does this mean? This 160,000 initial investment, I am trying to annualize it every year for next 12 years, which means that what amount to be paid every year for next 12 years would be equivalent to 160,000 now. So, what it would do in turn is, it will be annualizing your cost. Now, in the same manner I will be doing it for this as well as for this. So, what I can do is, if you notice it carefully, 160,000 you are paying at the end of year 4 and 20,000 you are getting it. So, effectively how much you are paying? 140,000. So, what I will do? I will write minus 140,000, which is nothing but 160 minus 20, this value minus this value, because they are at the same point of time. So, you can use algebraic method, simple subtraction. First, this value of 140,000 will be brought at t is equal to 0, this point. How do I convert that? I know F, I am interested in finding P. So, what I will do? I will write P given F at an interest rate of 15% for a period 4, because 4 year, n is 4, and this value once it comes here, I will annualize it in the same manner. That means, this would further get multiplied with A given P 15% for 12 periods. What I have done? Whatever is the algebraic sum at the end of year 4, first I am bringing it at time t is equal to 0. Once I am at time t is equal to 0, that this becomes my P, present value. This P will be used to calculate A, the annuity, as in the case of this 160,000. Now, same way I will do it for this. Here again the resultant would be 160,000 minus 20,000, 140,000. So, again it would be minus 140,000 P given F. Now, it would be 15% and period would be 8, n is equal to 8, and this factor would be common, A given P 15% 12. Here again what I have done? At the end of year 8, whatever is the resultant value, first I am bringing it to time t is equal to 0, and then I am annualizing it using the factor A given P at 15% interest rate for n is equal to 12. Now, finally, if you see the slide, we have to annualize this value 20,000, this is still remaining. So, for annualizing this, what I will do? This 20,000, there are many ways. One of the ways could be this 20,000, I am again bringing it at time t is equal to 0 and then annualizing it. So, it would be plus 20,000 multiplied by P given F at 15% for a period 12. So, that means this 20,000 has now come to time t is equal to 0, and then again I multiply it with A given P at 15% for 12 years. So, what you have noticed just now is, for each of the cash flows, I am first bringing at time t is equal to 0 and then annualizing it. There are many other ways also through which you can do this problem. So, this way you can get the resultant annualized cost for all the cash at different. Now, similar type of analysis you will be performing for alternative B also, or for asset A1. Now, whichever cost is least, that means whichever asset gives you the least liability, you will go for that particular option. Is it clear to you? Fine. Now, if you see for asset A1, I will do it again using common multiple method. Asset A1 has a cash flow implication like this. At time t is equal to 0, it is 115,000. Then it gets repeated every third year. Here it is time t is equal to 3, 6, 9 and finally 12. and so here also I am repeating 115,000. Here also you have 115,000. Here also you have 115,000. Now another thing, the annual cost 12,500. This is throughout 12 years. This is already in the form of annualized cost. So this 12,500 is already in the form of annualized cost. So finding the annualized cost for this case would be very simple. This we want to analyze at time t is equal to 0. This would be minus 115,000. What I need to multiply it with? I am interested in finding A. I know P, so I will do A given P 15%, 12 years. For this, I will first bring it to time t is equal to 0, and then I will be annualizing it. So it would be minus 115,000. It would be P given F 15% year 3, n is 3, multiplied by A given P 15% 12. Again for this, minus 115,000 P given F 15% for a period 6, multiplied by annualized factor A given P 15% 12 years. Again now I have to do it for this. So it is minus 115,000 P given F 15% 9 multiplied by A given P 15% 12, and I will be adding 12,500 in this. It is simple because it is already in the form of annualized cost. If you look at this particular cash flow diagram, just have a look at this. It is very clear. First thing that you have to do is convert 115,000 in annualized cost form. Then investment of 115,000 115,000 which is at year 3. First I bring it to time t is equal to 0, and this is then converted into annual form. Similarly for end of year 6, end of year 9, and finally we are adding 12,500 every year. Now finding these annualized cost, after finding the annualized cost for both the options, you see for which option you have got the least value. The least cost value is selected, and you will find that the answers that you are getting will be similar to what you obtained for
बदल दिया हमने ऊपर से।
बदल दे कमाल कर दिया सेल्स ने तो।
ये तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम है, ये तो एक दिन भी चल रहा था, ये तो घंटा नहीं गया ना।
डाली जेब में, कल से बैरंगा नहीं लगाएंगे।
ऑन कर दिया बस।
ऑन ही है ना।
एक बार चेक कर लीजिएगा ऑडियो की मीटिंग ऑन।
कोई इसमें पर चले गया, बोलिए जरा।
एक सेकंड। हेलो 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 हेलो, कैन यू हियर मी नाउ? हेलो टेक्नोलॉजी क्लास, कैन यू हियर मी नाउ? वो लोग नहीं आ रहे हैं रिस्पॉन्स।
आ रही उनके पास आ रही ऊपर।
उनके पास आ रही है?
आ रही है।
तो अभी स्टार्ट करूं? So that was the illustration on common multiple method or repeated project methods. Now the same problem I will try to solve it using study period method. In the previous lecture also I had mentioned, I had just given you the background of study period method. In this particular lecture I will show you how exactly you proceed using study period method. If you remember, I had told you that study period in most of the cases is taken as the least of the lives that you have for the alternatives. So, in this particular example, if you notice, for asset 2 the life is 4 years, whereas for asset 1 life is 3 years. If you just see here, asset 2 it is costing you 160,000, its life is 4 years, at the end of 4 years you are getting 20,000 as salvage value, and in between there is nothing, right. 1, 2, 3, this is at time t is equal to 0. This is alternative 1, sorry, this is alternative A2, asset A2. Now, other asset it is costing you 115,000 and it has got a life of 3 years only. 1, 2, 3, and your cost implication is 12,500 per year. Now, notice that asset 1 A1 has got 3 years life, asset 2 has got 4 years, lives are different. Now, assume that study period is 3 years, or you can take it this manner. In the problem you are told that consider study period as 3 years. In that case what we do is, if you see alternative 2, first thing that we need to do is this 160,000 I need to annualize it for 4 years. Similarly, this 20,000 I need to bring it at time t is equal to 0 and annualize it to 4 years. This will be more clear like this. When I take these diagrams separately, 160,000, this is 20,000, this is 0, this is 4, 3, 2 and 1. How do I analyze this? This would be annual cost would be equal to minus 160,000 this is my present value, I want to annualize it for 4 years. So, what formula I will use, what factor I will use? It would be A given P for an interest rate of 15% for 4 years, right. What about this? This will be in plus side, plus 20,000. First I bring this to time t is equal to 0. How I do it? By using P given F 15% 4. So, now this 20,000 multiplied by this factor is at time t is equal to 0. So, I will, in order to annualize it, I will multiply it with A given P 15% 4. So, this will be the annual cost for 4 years as far as asset 2 is concerned. As far as asset 2 is concerned. Now, when it comes to asset A1, the life is only 3 years. So, this is 115,000, this is 12,500 every year for next 3 years, year 1, 2, 3, no salvage value here, this is time t is equal to 0. This is 12,000 per year. So, in order to find its annual cost, I will find it like this, minus 115,000. I am given P, I am interested in finding A. So, A given P 15% for year 3, and I will add 12,500, because this is already in the annualized form. This is already in the annualized form. So, this way I can calculate the annual cost annualized for 3 years. Now, here I annualize it for, if you see this, here I annualized it for 4 years. So, let us say this value is coming to be x, that means 160,000 multiplied by a factor A given P 15% 4 years plus 20,000 multiplied by P given F 15% 4 years, and this in turn annualized is, let us say, a value x. This x you can calculate by using the formulas, relevant formulas, or using the interest factors table. So, this x is nothing but, it would be something like this. Remember, this is A2. So, here it is x, here it is x, here it is x, and here it is x. So, year 1, 2, 3 and 4. You understand from where this x is coming as far as asset 2 is concerned. Now, using the cash flow diagram of asset 1, we can come up with a diagram like this, in which we have converted it into an annualized value of y. This is time t is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. This is for asset A1. You know from where these x's are coming and from where these y's are coming. These are nothing but the annualized value. Now, as far as study period method is concerned, you forget what is happening after 3 years, because you have considered the study period as 3 years. So, here you find the value x and here you find the value y. Now, depending on whether x is greater than y or whether y is greater than x, you can choose the right alternative. This is on the assumption that we are not bothered what is happening beyond the study period. Is it clear? We are not bothered what is happening beyond the study period. Now, this particular method has got one advantage, because the inherent philosophy here is we are having a shorter study period, we are inherently recognizing that technological changes may occur in near future, and so there is no point making our judgment or making our decisions considering a very long period. What is happening in common multiple method? For an alternative with 3 years and 4 years life, we have a study period of 12 years. So, that is on the assumption that technological changes are not occurring very frequently, whereas that is not the case in real life situation. You find that technologies do change and that may affect our cost, our cash flow. So, this study period recognizes that technological changes are bound to occur, and that is why in such cases when you consider very short period, you are close to very real life situation. Now, one more advantage of using this particular study period method is like this. Suppose the asset which has got a longer life, let us say for example, this particular asset 2, it has got 4 years life, right, whereas this particular asset has got only 3 years life. So, another way through which we can calculate this, we can solve this problem is like this. Let us say I draw this figure once again, 160,000, end of year 4, here 1, 2, 3 and 4. I have another asset which has got 115,000 here, 12,500, 12,500 every year for 3 years only, 1, 2, 3. In this problem we are given that salvage value here is at 20,000. Now, a study period method you can use like this. You can assume that when the asset A2 is sold at end of year 3, let us say it is giving you some value S. Naturally, this S is going to be very high, because the equipment which has got a life of 4 years, if you are selling it at the end of year 3 itself, it will be very high compared to the salvage value. The resale value would be very high, because the equipment is still useful, because it was meant to serve you for 4 years, whereas you are disposing it off immediately at the end of study period. 3 is the study period in this particular example. if the study period could have been 2, what we would have done? We would have calculated the salvage value at this point, end of year 2, right. Now, this analysis you can use it in a manner like this. What would be the salvage value, or what should be the resale value at which this alternative becomes more favorable than this? So, now we are changing the problem situation. We are having a situation in which we are told to find the resale value at which some alternative becomes more favorable. This was not possible in case of common multiple method or repeated project methods. So, in this particular lecture, I have given you information on future worth comparison method, annual cost and worth comparison method. While discussing on future worth, I told you that it is more or less similar to present worth computations. The only difference is, instead of finding the money's worth at time t is equal to 0, we are finding it at some different point, some future point t is equal to n. Rest everything is same. The decision rule is the alternative with the maximum future worth is to be adopted. The alternative with the least cost liability at future date should be adopted, right. Then we moved on to annual cost method, and I told you that it is one of the most widely used method because of its simplicity of calculations and simplicity in understanding. Annualized cost method or annual cost method can be used for all 3 situations: one involving equal lives, another case involving unequal lives. In unequal lives, I solved the same problem which we did it for present worth using 2 methods. First one was common multiple method or repeated project methods, and second one was basically the study period method. So, at this point of time, I would like to close this particular lecture, and in next lecture I will be covering the rate of return comparison method that is very widely used for investment decisions. There you will find a number of terminologies such as internal rate of return, incremental rate of return, minimum attractive rate of return, external rate of return, so many terms. And then I will tell you how to calculate internal rate of return, and in the same lecture we will also be able to cover incremental rate of return method. So, these two topics we will cover in next lecture, which I will take it on Friday at in second session, Friday in second session, right. Thank you very much. If you have got any doubt, please ask me. Yes, technology class? You have any doubt? Technology class, you have any doubt? In case you do not have any doubt, then we stop at this point. Thank you and good night. Course outline. तो अब तो नहीं, आवाज ही नहीं आ रही इधर। कोर्स आउटलाइन तो इनको मैंने पहले ही लेक्चर में दिया था। अभी आप कनेक्ट कर देंगे?
कनेक्ट तो किया ही हुआ है उनको।
Course outline I will be sending you today through email. Will that be all right? That I had already discussed in lecture 1. And in case you want it again, I will send it to you through email today. I will send it to your course coordinator there as well as to the class representative. You can collect it from them. Is it all right? तो ठीक है, अभी तो क्लोज करते हैं। अभी या इनको यहाँ पे लिख के भेज दूँ? लिख दूँ यहाँ पे? Yes.
मैं आप कुछ बोल रहे सर, हेलो हेलो बोल रहे। आप पूछो, बोलो। हेलो, बोलना सर।
Yes. Can you please repeat your question? क्या आज आवाज क्यों नहीं?
सर वो कह रहे हैं लेक्चर नोट है ना, जो लेक्चर 1 से लेक्चर 6 तक का
हाँ
भेज देना।
हाँ, that I will be sending it to you by tomorrow. By tomorrow definitely you will be receiving it through your email. I have already prepared it. I will send it to you through email by tomorrow. Thank you. Good night. आज इधर से आवाज क्यों नहीं आ रही?